Okay, so continuing back to this. Okay, this is topic 4. So your core reading material is still the same, which is this, which you can find in your core syllabus. You can easily search for this book, although it's not the newest edition on the internet. Okay, at the end of this lesson, you should be able to learn about what the principle of water. So in this topic, if you were to look back at the appendix that I've given to you, the formula list, so there's not much calculation in this topic. There's only one calculation. So mostly it's all theory lah. Okay, so let's continue on. Okay, so first of all, this is the first part, introduction facts on water. As previously mentioned, you have to learn a bit about water, and so water is important in a sense that if there's no water, then there will be no life. So all living things need water. So it's one of our basic needs, like eating. So if we don't eat, we don't drink water, then we cannot survive. So if you were to see all around us on Earth where we are staying, you'll notice that there's a lot of water all around us. But the problem is all of this water is salt water. So all living things need water, but we personally we need fresh water to survive because we cannot drink salt water. But other living things they can survive in salt water. And because we want to survive and we need fresh water, so we need to preserve the the remaining fresh water on Earth. So although we may see all around us that there's a lot of water, but most of them is salt water. And we shouldn't be drinking it lah, because if you were to drink it, then it actually doesn't really help us, because as we drink more salt water, we will feel more thirsty and it will mess up our body system lah. So fresh water is very scarce, means there's a limited amount of it, and most of the fresh water we have on Earth is groundwater or from the mountain water. Either that, there's also water from river, stream, lake, and rain. So this actually represent a very small amount of water that's readily available for us to use. And as our population increase, we will require more and more water to survive. So as the years gone by, the amount of fresh water is always still the same. But what we know, the fact that we know is our population is increasing. So that's why we need to ensure that there's always a constant supply of water to fulfill our needs. So everything we do in life, even if we are not using it, consuming the water, we are actually using water to flush down our toilet, to wash our plates, and to clean our stuff. So it and also to shower. So all of this is using up the precious amount of water we have. So I don't think we want to use salt water to wash our body, to shower our body, or to wash our stuff, because then it will be very sticky. That's why water is important, and the type of water we use is also important. And that's a thing lah for us. Okay, so there's a lot of steps that can be presented or used to ease the world's needs of water. So have as our population increase more and more, then the requirement for water will increase, because each of us, no matter how good we try to reduce the usage of water, we cannot avoid using it. So one of the steps is to develop a better water filtration system. So you know that one thing we know that in our modern society, because it's so easy for us to get all of these services to us, we often be ignorant of how these uh, services get to us, like the water that we have, like the electricity that we have, or even when we are doing our business in the toilet. So we often ignore the fact that how easy it is for us to use all these services. So one of the things that we need to know on how to ease the world's water needs is through development better and efficient water filtration system. So because water is not gonna grow up by itself, we need water filtration system to clean the water and provide us this clean water for us to use. So if you were to look back at the olden days when there's no water filtration system, then we'll be digging well. We'll be taking the water from the underground water. So if you have a very good water filtration system, so we can extract the water from maybe a reservoir, a stream, a river, or maybe up from the river up from the mountain. So from there we will be able to get water. So a good example of places where in desert, for example in Dubai, because it's a desert and there's no river, the groundwater level is also very very low. So what they do, because their country is rich in oil, they actually have a system in where they actually burn oil and extract the water from the environment, because their oil is very cheap. So basically, if you go there to visit the country and you are to order a glass of water, it's actually more expensive than a liter of gas. Okay, so next is to promote water stewardship, protecting the wetland, improving irrigation efficiency, increasing water storage in reservoir, desalinating seawater, recycling wastewater, and many more. So there's actually a lot of method to protect the world's need. So the third one is to protect the wetland. So we want to protect the area like the forest, improve irrigation. Okay, so most of them is to not disturb the nature, because in the nature forest, we want to ensure that there's this catchment area that will absorb the rainwater. So when all this natural area or natural forest is preserved, when they capture the rainwater, it will actually replenish back the groundwater level. So, and the desalinating seawater is about changing seawater into water lah. So this is actually a very expensive process lah, where you try to obtain distilled water and just extract the water, but you remain the salt. And finally, you have your recycling of your wastewater, which is rainwater lah, or maybe uh, or this is for your toilet water. So recycling wastewater is what you'll find actually in Singapore, where they actually have a shortage of water. And I'm not sure if you guys have read the news before. They actually recycle the toilet water into very very clean water in which you can drink. So it's a quite a complicated process to just to get water. So in Malaysia, we are actually blessed because we have a lot of river. So that's why our we do not have this problem of the needs of more water. Okay, so there is this hydrological cycle, either which is a water cycle. So I'm sure during your high school time, you guys have learned a bit of how what is a water cycle. So you have how the cycle of water go from the ground into the air lah, which is the cloud. So we started off with the water on the ground. So water on the ground is actually being evaporated up to the sky. So it actually forms clouds. So this process of from ground to cloud is actually evaporation or either from the ocean. So it becomes so the groundwater evaporates and become cloud, and when it gets dense enough, then the cloud will rain, which is precipitation. And then from that it will reach the land and it will run off into the lake or the ground. And then after that it will go into the groundwater. And as a plant take up the water, then all this process will repeat again. So this is a water cycle. So if you notice of why this cycle keep happening is because actually water itself is a medium or a liquid which is very unstable. So why do I say it's unstable? It's in a sense that if you were to actually put a cup of water next to your bed, you can actually see that the water level will slowly reduce. This is because it actually requires very less energy for the water molecules in the state of liquid to escape to escape as a gas element, to change its state from liquid to gas. So is the idea is like that lah, on why liquid on why water is easily able to evaporate into gas. So there's four process to it: evaporation from liquid to vapor to gas to the cloud, and you have your condensation where the vapor is cooled down and it turns back into a liquid, which is vapor which in the gas or the cloud, and then it starts to rain, and precipitation is where it starts to rain, and then you have a runoff. So this is a four state in which the water cycle happens in the nature surrounding and all around us. Okay, so there's actually only a few sources of water supply for us available. So one of the three main sources of fresh water is the groundwater, surface water, and the rainwater. So groundwater is where most of our water comes from, which is from rain and melting snow. So this water obtained from the rain and melting snow actually is being replenished through rain lah. So as we dig a well into the ground and we extract the groundwater, then as more and more water is being extracted, the water level will actually go down. And one of the way for the groundwater to be replenished is through rain. So if you have an area that is actually covered in concrete, means the water cannot seep into the area. Then if you have a well there, and as you extract more and more water from it, and because all the area is being covered by the concrete, then if you have a if a rain occurs at that particular area, then the rain will not be actually be able to increase back the water level because there's no catchment area for this water. So what happens, how we can fill up the groundwater level is by having the rain filling up the space between the rock and soil, making an aquifer. So one thing is that not all groundwater is safe for use lah. So groundwater contamination has been found in many places. So one thing about groundwater is that the way we obtain the water is through the filtration of all this soil. So if you actually have a well, so it doesn't make it's not good lah to go and pour some chemical or maybe you do your business next to the well because that water is gonna be contaminated. So if you look inside your house, if you can look at your water filter, so the old kind of water filter is basically the type of filter that is in the ground. Let's show you. Okay, so this is what you usually find in your now modern house lah. But previously, let's have a quick search on the previous type of water filter. Okay, so actually this is not the best type. Let's find more. Okay, so the process of filtering water in our house, if you were to look at it at the olden times, since before we have all this new technology, so how we try to filter the water is by having different layer of aggregates and material. So we have a very rough layer, and then we have a lot of different layer lah here. Then we have more fine layer. So this is to filter all the unwanted particles of mineral from the water. So this is just a very crude example here lah on this picture of how we filter our water. So one of the material which is very important except for all this aggregate and sand and maybe silt which is used to filter the water, one of the very important, if you were to find out uh, more about this filter, is that is charcoal lah. So charcoal is important in a sense that it's actually able to kill a lot of microorganism in the water. So this way it make it very safe for us to consume. Okay, so next is our surface water. So surface water is where most of our water supply comes from. So it's mostly from river and stream lah. So as mentioned before, Malaysia is very blessed to have a lot of water supply which come from the river and stream. And we want to try to collect the water from upstream lah. So the way we try to collect the water is by building a dam, by building a catchment area. And from that dam, if you notice, if you have read on the news recently where there's a lot of contamination to our water supply, you notice that there is a picture of the dam or upstream river where the water is being collected. So you want to try to collect the water from upstream if it's possible to avoid contamination by human activity or by vegetation or irrigation lah. So all the water that we use must be colorless, free from small suspended matter, and free from harmful bacteria. So colorless is what water should look like lah. And free from small suspended matter is we don't want to have our water to be filled with inorganic material like maybe wood, sand, or vegetation. So having your water that is filled with this is a no-no lah. And then finally, you will need to be free from harmful bacteria. So because the water that we use, even though it's for toilet or maybe for shower, we will actually filter it to use for our drinking water. So before water is being supplied to us consumer in a house, the water authority or the company that is handling this filtration of this water or the supply of this water, they need to ensure that these three criteria is fulfilled. So the water must not have any color. There's no organic matter in the water they are supplying. So there's no wood, there's no vegetation, there's no sand, and finally there's no harmful bacteria. So if there's a harmful bacteria available in the water, then it will be very dangerous because this there's only one source of water they are providing to us, and we are using it to do all our normal activity such as washing our plates, showering, and drinking. So all of them we are using only one source of water, which is from the company. So in Malaysia is from Shabas lah, our where we obtain our water. And finally, we have our rainwater. So rainwater is the original source of water we use for drinking because during the olden times where technology is not good, we have catchment area to get the rainwater lah because it's clean and we don't have to filter any inorganic matter and the water looks colorless. So now that we learned about a bit about the water cycle and our sources of water, where we can obtain our water from, we have to know about the quality of water. Okay, first off here, here it says pure water has no color, taste, smell, and neither acidic or alkaline. So water in its most pure state will not have any color, taste, smell, and is pH neutral. So because of this characteristic, because it's pH neutral, it can actually dissolve many substances in it. So it's actually terms as a universal solvent. Okay, so fun fact for you guys. So do you guys actually know how you get why is there a scale of 1 liter of water? You guys know? So milliliter ml is actually a drop of water, and 1 liter of water is actually 1,000 drop of water. So this is how the scale come about. What about kg? Do you guys know how 1 kg is what is the source of how this 1 kg scale is done? Okay, so actually 1 kg of water is equivalent to 1 liter of water. So 1 liter of water is actually what represent 1 kg of water. So in that sense, all our new skill that we have is actually most of them are tied to water and is universally accepted lah. This is a very accurate scale lah. So 1 kg of water is what actually represent 1 liter of water lah. Sorry, it's another way around. So 1 liter of water is what represent the 1 kg of scale that we have now today. So this is a new metric system lah, instead of using stones or pound, which is often confusing. Okay, so coming back to this, so we know that on the most pure state of water is very unique lah. But in nature, you actually won't be able to find out. We actually will not be able to obtain water in a very pure state, because water can dissolve a lot of substance. It can actually dissolve gases also. So what we find in the nature is impure lah. They will have a lot of material in it or a lot of chemical in it. So this chemical is actually obtained maybe sometimes from the air, which is a carbon dioxide, or maybe from the ground. So once it absorbs all this chemical, all this mineral, then the water actually become not pure lah. So what there's a different characteristic of impure water that we actually are able to find. So sometimes you can find organic matter or inorganic matter in the water. So organic matter is vegetation. Inorganic matter will be something like sand. And then we have microorganism. So bacteria and all will actually live very well in water. We have pollutant. So chemical ingredient in it due to our human activity. Acidity. So acidity is pH value lah. So at a pure state, water is actually neutral at 7. But if there's other chemical in it, something like a lemon, then it will go to acidic or either alkaline. And finally, we have hardness of water. So this hardness of water is actually very important to us. Okay, so this is about acidity of water. You guys can have a look at it. So we cannot consume a too acidic water or too alkaline water. This is bad for us. So one thing to take note of is water that is too acidic will cause problem to our equipment. Okay, coming back to this. So one thing about water is that most of the water we obtain, there's a certain hardness in it. So surface water are soft water, but groundwater are hard water. So what it means that hard water is that there's a lot of mineral in it. So our body requires mineral, and one of the way we obtain this mineral is through the hard water from the mineral or groundwater. So you often find in the water bottle that you buy, if they say it's a source from groundwater, it's actually hard water So there's mineral in the water. So when a water is a soft water, it means that there's less mineral in it, but there's a higher concentration of sodium or salt. Then this is a surface water lah. It's a soft water. So one of the properties of hard water is actually difficult to obtain a letter with soap lah. So the hardness of water is determined primarily by the amount of calcium and magnesium it contains. So the more it has, the more calcium and magnesium is present in the water, the harder it is. So there's a problem and advantage to hard water. So one of it is the wastage of fuel occurs because of scale in boilers and pipe. So scale is the white stuff that happens, that is present when you have water. So is this accumulation of mineral that happens, if you can see in this picture. So because there's a lot of mineral in the water, as the water pass by this pipe, some of the mineral actually doesn't just stay onto the pipe. So as the pipe is being operated and used for a very, very long time, then the pipe diameter actually got less due to the accumulation of this mineral. So if you can see in your bathroom or maybe in your kitchen, you might be able to see some sort of white deposit lah. So this is actually a scale or mineral which is present in our water. So this mineral actually, when it's deposited, it will cause damages to the boiler and pipe that we have. So we will need to waste more soap and energy to form a leather, and then there will be more wears and tears to our texture if you were to use hard water to wash it over a long period. So finally, we have inconvenience of the foul taste lah. So taste and for food and drink can actually be affected by hard water. So why is it affected by hard water? Because of the minerals present in it. So these minerals, they have themselves a certain amount of taste. So the more mineral present in the water, the more smell it has from the mineral. So that's why there can be some effect from the water to your taste. So but there's a advantage of hard water. So hard water, there's less toxic. It can cause less toxic lead. Lead is dissolved from pipe by hard water. So there won't be much of this anymore because our pipe is mostly made of PVC or some iron. So olden days, because we don't have a lot of during the olden times, because there's not a lot of regulation, there's not a lot of awareness or knowledge, then they install a lot of toxic material which carries the water supply. But now there's no problem because of knowledge, because of incident happening. So there's no problem with lead So lead is very dangerous to us because we are able to absorb lead easily. Okay, here is one of the feature of hard water is actually it tastes better So pure water doesn't have any taste, and hard water actually is appealing to us to drink. And also there's a decreased incidence of heart disease when we drink hard water. So because hard water contain mineral in which our body needs. Drinking hard water is actually very good for us. So here's another repeat of the slides. Salt water is the rainwater and distilled water. So distilled means there's no mineral, and hard water is our groundwater. So remember, hard water, how we obtain hard water is by having mineral in the water. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so let's finish this and then we will have a break lah. So next is our water treatment. So before the water is being supplied to us from our sources, so usually we obtain our water sources from the reservoir or from the river. So before this water is supplied to us, we want to treat this water to ensure that it's safe for us to use. So even if you were to open our tap and drink the water, usually this water has already been treated to be free from any bacteria or any inorganic or organic waste that's present in the water. So it's a regulation to ensure that this water is safe for consumption, although you shouldn't be consuming it direct from the tap lah. It's not recommended lah. Because in Malaysia, we actually don't treat the water good enough until we can drink straight from the tap. Although you may do it, but it's in minimum moderation, there's no problem lah. But in long term, it's not so good lah because it's not fit. It's not so fit for consumption. So you always need to have a filtration system to further clean the water to be fit for consumption. So for water treatment, there's actually three main stage to treat the water. So the first primary treatment is to collect and screen the water from the river. So we collect and we screen it to ensure that it's free from all those inorganic and organic material. And then after that, we have our primary treatment, which is filtration. We want to remove all the contaminants in the water. And then finally, we have our disinfection, which is our tertiary treatment. So we want to polish it, adjust the pH, carbon treatment to remove the taste and smell. We want to disinfect it, and then we want to store it. So this is the three primary stage in water purification. So this is a more breakdown of the process of water treatment. So first off is the screening, is to remove floating matter such as leaf, branches of tree, and dead animal. So this is to remove the organic material. And then we have our plain sediment. So this is to remove our inorganic material, which is the silt, clay, fine sand, and other things. So it works by removing the inorganic material through the act of gravity. So this screening is through a screening panel to remove all this floating organic material. And then for the third one, so this is to further and rapidly remove even finer inorganic material which cannot be removed via gravity. So for this method, the sedimation with coagulation, we have to use the help of chemical to help to bind onto the floating inorganic suspended material, which is very fine, which takes a very long time for the for it to settle down with the use of chemical to ensure that all of them are removed lah, by binding into a more heavier uh, matter to float down onto the surface of the water. So this is by use of chemical lah, to ensure that all this fine material is being combined together and drop to let it sink down to the water. And then finally we have our filtration. So this is to separate the impurities from liquid. So once we have actually sediment it, we want to filter it out away. And then we have our aeration and chemical treatment, and finally disinfection. So you want to ensure that oxygen is being transferred from the air to the water. So this is to remove the CO2 and methane from the gas lah. And finally, we have our disinfection. So this is to kill off any remaining infectious organism on the water, in the water. So we have our water storage. So the purpose of this water storage is to balance the non-uniform discharge between demand rate and supply. So the meaning behind this is that we can supply a uniform amount of a uniform rate of water, but when we are using it, when the suppliers are using it at the end user, we do not always require we do not always use a steady amount of water. So we might use more during the day and more during the night. So that's why we need to have a water storage to store the water so that it's available when required. So if the water storage tank is not provided, the pipe will experience high pressure during low demand, which can actually damage the piping system. And then during high demand, if you are not able to supply enough water for everyone to use, then there will be low pressure in the distribution pipe. So to ensure a very comfortable use of our water supply system, we need to have water storage. So with a water storage available, we will be able to obtain a constant stream of water for everyone. Then this is also an added advantage of not damaging our pipe system available. So we have different type of water storage tank, and there's three types of water storage tank. So one of them is the plant storage tank, which is to store the treated water, balancing tank to receive the clean water and distribute it to the service tank, and finally we have our service tank. So a service tank is actually to supply water from balancing tank to distributed area such as home, office, and factory. So the first one, the plant storage tank, is where you'll find at the water treatment facility. And then the balancing tank will be another set of tank which is closer to the society or to the area that you're staying. So this plant storage tank is where is at the water treatment, means usually is at the near the reservoir there where the plant is being built. And finally we have our service tank. So this service tank is to supply water from this balancing tank to distributed areas such as home, office, and factory. So it's something like this lah. So this is our treatment plant, and usually this is what you have lah for your service tank. And so okay, so this is not a very nice picture. Okay, so I hope you guys notice lah. This is the storage tank lah. During maybe if you go on a trip to Penang, you can see this sort of tank or this sort of structure made most of the time is in concrete lah. So this type of structure is where most of the water is being stored on a high place, on a high height lah. Or sometimes if you were to go around KL, then you can see there's a water tank being built all over Malaysia lah. Okay, so it